What's up, guys? Welcome back to Elwood Games. Thomas here, and this week I wanted to talk about building my Tyranids and basically what I would do if I were to start over with Tyranids. And basically, if instead of starting a couple years ago, I started the Tyranids today. So as I talked about last week, I'm basically going through my two main armies and talking about how I would collect them again if I were to start everything over. With my Tyranids, they were basically a break from painting armor because I had Tau at the time, so I was doing a lot of that, but I also had Space Marines at the time, and I was just really tired of painting very inorganic, just armor upon armor upon armor upon metal bits upon armor. And I just wanted to change, and I wanted something fun and cool that I could get a little crazy with. So I decided to pick up a Biovore kit, which is my favorite Tyranids unit, and build then paint that up. Which is how I came up with my sort of pink scheme with the opalescent coat and all of that wonderful goodness that came with that. And honestly, that paint scheme kind of haunts me to this day, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So as far as models are concerned, I don't think there was necessarily anything wrong with how I collected Tyranids. I got mainly the units that I wanted to play with. I didn't really get any units that I felt were dead or anything along those lines. It was more just that I had a tendency to buy multiple kits at a time. So I think I should have slowed down a bit because there were times where I had 2 boxes of 10 models and it was just so overwhelming. So many pieces to put together, and then painting them is such a hassle because, to be honest, the paint scheme is a bit involved. And I think that would be my next biggest gripe, is that I think I should have tested some other paint schemes for my Tyranids before kind of diving headfirst into the one that I have. While I do really love the way that they look, and I am very proud of them, and a lot of people have commented and complimented me on my Tyranid scheme, the truth of the matter is that it takes a lot of steps, and it does take a lot of time to paint even a smaller unit of 3 or 5, and I would really have liked to have been able to make it easier for smaller units, and especially the swarm units, to be able to paint them up quickly. But simply, that's just not what happened, and I am very proud of my Tyranids, and I like the way that they look, and I'm not planning on repainting all of my Tyranids by any means, nor am I thinking about painting a subset of them in different ways, just because I like the cohesive nature of the Tyranids, and I think having them all look very similar or identical is more akin to what I expect my Tyranids to be. So that's kind of where I'm sitting as far as that's concerned. But if I were to start over, I probably would have got just a unit of Hormagaunts or Tormagaunts and tried, 10 or so different paint schemes just to get an idea of what I was painting and see which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like. And I honestly would have potentially looked into either oil washes or contrast paints as a means just to get the paint faster on there, and maybe spent more time on the carapace or another part of it to be more of a focal point instead of it feeling like the whole thing is a focal point. As far as units are concerned, though, I did find that I would buy, an infantry model, a monster, 2 or 3 battle line, and then another monster, and then 2 or 3 battle line, and then a monster. And I kind of went in that pattern, and I didn't really let myself explore the Vanguard invaders. I do have a lot of leapers now, but I think if I had ventured into the other lictors and those sorts of things, I would be able to play a bit more of the detachments. I also feel like I don't have enough monsters to do something like Crusher Stampede. So instead of focusing down on the swarm, which I do really like the swarm aspect a lot, it's one of my favorite things about the Tyranids, but I think I still could have accomplished that by not going as heavy. And instead of getting that box of Hormagaunts, I instead got another box of Leapers, a couple of Lictors, something like that, to be able to translate those and that sort of thing. I kind of wished that the Raveners had come in sooner. So I could have potentially had more burrowing units for the burrowing detachment. But now knowing that that's translating into 11th edition, that makes me more keen to actually consider buying, the Trigon and the Moloch to be able to play those and that sort of thing. They're not my favorite models though, so we'll probably just kind of wait and see how that feels as we get closer and more into the edition, and if we might get newer kits of that going forward. I think outside of that, one other thing that I could have considered, I think more so with the Tyranids than with my Tau, is considering secondhand models. While I do like supporting my store and that sort of thing, there were definitely a lot of people selling big lots of Tyranid models secondhand through our local Discord and that sort of thing, that I think I probably could have actually taken advantage of and been able to get a more bulk of the collection and been able to knock down the hobby time that I'm having to spend on Tyranids by not having to build and then just being able to get right into painting. I think there's pros and cons to secondhand minis for sure. I think everyone kind of understands that. But I feel like with my Tyranids specifically, had I gone the route of secondhand, I think I could have maybe been able to get more of the collection that I would want, and been able to get more of the painting and everything done, since I wouldn't be bogged down by also building all that much. But really, I think Tyranids would be the only faction that I've been collecting so far where I would consider secondhand. And it's not to knock anyone that does do secondhand minis. I definitely think that's a great way to get into the hobby for much cheaper and for much less hobbying effort. So definitely do that if that's something that you're wanting to do or considering. Try it out, see if you like it. If it sticks with you, fantastic. We'll see if I pivot into that in the future. But honestly, I got to get through my current Tyranids backlog before I look at buying anything more for Tyranids. But yeah, that's basically it. I think if I had varied my collection earlier and been able to kind of try out different detachments, I feel like I would be enjoying the army even more than I am now. And I could be going into 11th edition with a lot of different paths to be able to push my Tyranids into. Whereas right now I have a few model paths that I can go in terms of the current detachments. But really I think going forward, I am going to try and better mix up the unit types. Right now in my backlog, I have a couple things of Raveners. That'll be a regular Ravener and hyper adapted unit. I have some more Warriors and the new Prime to be able to kind of have some more unique options and that sort of thing. But I do think maybe I'll consider getting some more monsters later this year to maybe have more of a Crusher Stampede option as well. The Raveners help with the Vanguard Invaders, so I also have a few Lictors and other Vanguard Invaders to add to that force to be able to do that. Hopefully we get new Gargoyles, because those are the battle line Vanguard Invader unit technically, and I would love to see those flying guys in the new Gaunt styling and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's how I would start Tyranids over. If you're a Tyranids player, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you either started your collection or how you would restart your collection if you ever needed to. And I know that would be a great asset for any budding Tyranid players out there. So let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on that, and I will see you guys next week. And next week I will have returned from England and should have a video kind of talking about my trip, hopefully with some pictures and videos from the Warhammer store, so you can look forward to that. But thanks everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.